Hello and happy Wednesday, November the 16th. It is now a 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the afternoon, and I just finished up a quick little lunch to break up and we're going to do a little sculpting to break up my workday. Going to probably work on 2 different pieces in this 2-hour window. It's going to be just a little bit, we'll do some sculpting on top of what I started on Saturday night, where I'm creating this creature that lives in my fantasy world of Revelo. I haven't really completely thought through this race of creatures yet, but I've got the sketch in the right-hand side of the window, and just going to keep sculpting on top of it and see where it takes us. I also have a blade here that I started sculpting, this crazy dagger thing that I'm making, and I sculpted on one side on Saturday, and then I'm going to sculpt on the other side probably today just to keep working through this thing and see where it goes. But first we're going to start on this guy. When sculpting, I'm going to be using Magic Sculpt. Hey, Noble, what's happening? How's your day going? I'm going to go ahead and get my gloves on. And if anybody's watching that hasn't watched before, when I wear these gloves, I wear them because I have an allergic reaction to this Magic Sculpt that I use, and I try and get them as tight as I can. These are the medium-sized nitrile gloves, but I want them to be tight, so there's little wrinkles in the thumb, but I want to try and work that out so when I'm smoothing things down, it's going okay, and I don't get a bunch of bumps in there. Ha! Right on. I've been up since I tried setting my alarm for 5 this morning. It's 1 here. I tried setting it for 5, and then I pushed it back till 6. So I've been up for a while. Got a fair amount of work done this morning. With this Magic Sculpt, I order it in these 10-gallon buckets, or 10-pound buckets. I keep saying gallon, but it's definitely a solid. I'm going to pull out a small fistful size of this. Did you do anything exciting last night? I'll get a little bit more than this. So since Saturday when I did some sculpting on this, I went ahead and cut some ears out of a rigid, right on. Breakfast is a very important meal. I cut these out of this kind of hard paperboard substrate, and then I cut a slit in the styrofoam on the back of the creature so that it would give it something to anchor into. And that's going to give the foundation for sculpting on top of it so it has a form. Hey, Saving Throw Show, thank you for the auto host. And Steve for the auto host. Alright, so I've got a ball of, this is the resin, the lighter of the 2 colors is the resin material. I'm just going to drop this down on my mat for a second. And then I'm going to get my other bucket, which is the hardening agent. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the exact same size. So for anybody that's new that's tuning in or accidentally jumped in from somebody else's auto host, I'm sculpting some fantasy creatures that's from my world of Revelo. You can see the illustration in the right-hand side of this critter that we're working on. And I started laying the foundation on Saturday. I made the eyes myself, and I'm just going to start building it up from here. So, Noble, what are you going to be making for breakfast? These are pretty close in size. I'm going to take a little bit of the hardening agent off just to get it a little bit closer. And I'm going to show you how to mix the 2 together. And then we'll start our sculpting quest. Right on. I will stop asking you questions. Frogs in a pond, is that like toad in a hole? I said I would stop asking you questions, sorry. Okay, so take one of the two colors and just roll it out like a coil. You just want to kind of stretch it out so that you can do the same with both pieces, and it'll make it easy to twist them together to start blending the two colors. Taking the second color, the lighter one for this is always the resin material. Yes, totally. Toad in a hole is the same as the frog in a pond, I guess. Okay, so then I get the two colors. You can see how there's a slightly darker and slightly lighter one. And then I'm just going to twist them and twist them and twist them. And once you've got them nice and tight, then you just start mashing them together. And it'll be nice and make a good sticky sound as it smacks against the gloves. And I'm just going to keep working the two colors together. You want to get it so that there aren't any ribbons of color. You don't want the colors streaming. You want them to completely blend. If they don't blend, you'll have parts that don't want to dry and harden. So you want to make sure it's all worked through. It only takes a couple of minutes to do it though, so it's not a big deal. Smackety, smackety, smack. So with this, I think we'll start by working the ears into the piece. I want to put a little bit of Magic Sculpt in there to put those board ears that I put in, wedge them in there a little bit, then put a thin coating of the Magic Sculpt on top of it so that it can start laying a foundation, because that'll probably have to harden up before I go in and put a lot of the details into it. And I'll probably do it where then we'll go in and start doing some of the other textures. I think it's time now to start putting some of the boils and stuff that I have on the illustration into the face and start getting some of those details in so we can start seeing a little bit more of the personality. I'll probably end up saving most of the clothing that's coming around, its shoulders and stuff. I'll probably save that for the end, for one of the last sculpting days, just because I'm not as confident with clothes, so might as well put it off. Make everything look awesome and then wreck it. Alright, so now these, let's see if I hold it up here. These two colors are blended really well together. They look pretty uniform. It's all one solid color. So I'm going to turn this just a little bit so I can see it a bit better. And I'm going to see where I cut and push this ear in. I'm going to pop it out. I'm going to take a really thin coil. I'm going to pinch off just a little bit of the Magic Sculpt. Just enough to try and get it to be the right space of that hole. And I'm just going to grab one of my tools from over here. I'll just grab this flat knife tool. I just want to kind of push it down just a little bit, try and get some of it down in there. Now I'm probably going to jam this cardboard ear in here, and it's just going to make it kind of spurt over the edge, which is okay. I just wanted to make sure that there's something in there to help give it a little tooth and give it something to grab onto. Because when you have pieces that come off of a styrofoam base like this, you want to make sure they have a really good foundation so they're never going to break off of anything. And once this stuff hardens up and solidifies, that'll be set. I'll give it just a little bit more for now, just to wrap around there for a moment while we go around and do the exact same thing on the other ear. And once that starts to thicken up, I'll take some water to this, smooth it down just a little bit. We'll add some more of the Magic Sculpt around it. But right after you first mix the Magic Sculpt, it's a little harder to get the finer details with, so I'm just going to put just a little bit in there. And we'll spin this guy around. I didn't put the Lazy Susan down on the table today because I had this base and I didn't think adding an extra couple inches was necessary to the overall height. But you can see here where I cut into the styrofoam just with an X-Acto blade and then dug it out so that I could have a hole for the ear to go into. And again, I'm just going to put some of this Magic Sculpt down over the hole, take my knife blade and just kind of work it down, try and push some of it down in. Doesn't have to be a whole lot, just enough for it to get a grip. And when that Magic Sculpt dries, it is going to be like solid rock. I mean, like this blade that I started making, let's see if you can hear it. I mean, this thing is solid. Okay, let's jam this ear back in. Ooh. The cardboard, the mounting board that I'm using for this is more flimsy than the Magic Sculpt. Alright. That's going to give us a good start there. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use this ear as my foundation, my main point of reference as a starting point. So with this, I'm just going to go ahead and take some of the Magic Sculpt, take a pinch of it, and mash it down kind of like to a pancake almost, a real flat surface, so that I can just do a real light coating over this ear. I just want this to give it some rigidity so that on the next sculpting session, it's good and dry and ready for some real details and depth to be added to the ear. Right now, I don't really care about getting the different shapes and levels of complexity that an ear should have. Just want to get this base down. And a little bit there. Put a little bit down around the earlobe, a little bit around the tip of the ear. And this ear should be about ready. I'll go ahead and, well, once this is coated, I'll go ahead and spray it so I can smooth it down. But since this is a paper type product that's underneath of it, I want to make sure I coat the whole thing before I start spraying it with water. So I'm going to stand up and make sure I got the other side. There are definite patches on the back side. Sorry this thing's rocking so much. Just want to make sure I have all the bases covered with this. Keep hoping I'll hear the door and it'll be my silicone arriving. I'm going to be doing some mold making, I think, on Saturday's stream, which is good because I need to make some molds. I'm gonna mold some teeth that I sculpted this morning out of monster clay, and also a couple of little magnet pieces. But the teeth, I think I'm going to put in. I'm going to make a little tin that has these 13 different teeth. I'm going to use them in my sculptures, but I'm also going to make a tin to collect the 13 teeth and sell those as almost like fortune-telling devices. Call them wisdom teeth. Alright, I've got this all covered, so now it's going to be time to spray it down just a little bit, smooth it all out, and then we'll move on to the other ear to get the foundation. Magic Sculpt takes really well to water. It smooths down real good. You'll see as I'm sculpting, as I'm pushing the water around and smoothing this down with my thumb, that it's going to really fade into the base that it's attached to. I just want to try and make sure I get it all nice and clean, everything's covered well, and blended into the main base. And I'm really excited about actually sculpting on the ears once this is dried up, because ears are some of my favorite things to sculpt on. I like the shapes a whole lot of all the different components of ears. Always have. That's how it is. Alright, gonna get the back side of this. And another nice thing about once this is solid and dry, I don't have to worry about this thing moving around and wiggling or accidentally popping it out of the base. Alright. So that guy is good for now. That'll dry till the next sculpting session. And now I'm going to spin this thing around, and we'll move on to the other ear. If anybody's watching that hasn't normally, please feel free to ask questions. I am happy to answer any questions about sculpting, creatures, anything at all that I may have some knowledge on, and always willing to share the knowledge that I have. Okay, I'm just doing a really thin layer of the Magic Sculpt, mashing it down with my fingers to try and get a thin surface to just cover this whole area, this ear area, so that it will set up. And now this will start to set up in about an hour, but really cure overnight. And since I'm really just taking a break in my normal workday to do this, I'm going to have to let the ear set up and then come back to this next time I do some sculpting. And I haven't decided if this guy might take a little break. What's your design process? For designing these creatures, what I do is like the styrofoam base that it's made out of, I order 5 to 6 different pieces at a time, and then I'll have them lurking around in my office studio space, and then I'll just start doing concept sketches, kind of like the one that's in the window, and I'll start to design up different creatures. I usually just start with start doing these little circles and then see where it goes. Now that I'm starting to really evolve my world more, as I'm doing that, I'm thinking about the different areas that I haven't put creatures yet, so that I can start to build out the world even more. But that's kind of where it starts, and then once I'm happy with a design sketch, then I'll go ahead and take the styrofoam piece down and start doing a sculpture of it. Sometimes I do it, I turn the styrofoam upside down, sometimes I hack pieces away, add to it. Just depends on what I see, what I'm starting to draw. But I was also, for a while, I was trying to do like a monster drawing every day. And that helped me get really quick at doing drawings and just kind of not thinking about it so much while I'm doing it and just seeing where the imagination goes. And I think that made it a lot easier for doing some of these creature concepts as I go. And then every now and again I'll try and make certain creatures look like other creatures I've already created. Either they're part of the same race or a similar species that have evolved just in different parts of the world. And when I do that, I try and think more about the habitat, the ecology of things to make sure some of the design elements that I'm working in make sense. And sometimes it just goes in whatever way my brain wants it to go. Okay, I've got to get a little bit on this side of the ear, and then I'll spray this one down and we'll smooth it all down and move on to putting some other details in. Let this stuff set up. Alright, that one's got, it's going to have to be lifted up a little bit. It's starting to fade in. Alright, let's go ahead and push this up a little and start blending this down. And that water is definitely going to help make it smooth. Gonna try and blend this in. And I did just talk about UPS coming for a delivery, and I think I just heard the front gate. But my wife is here, so hopefully she will get that and lug in the big boxes of silicone. And just going to blend this down in a little bit more. Now I'm going to get the back side. Yeah, low heat cooking totally takes a long time, especially when you're hungry first thing in the morning. But it is better than having a rubbery egg. Alright, so I've got the basis of this ear down, and that'll change a bit once I actually start doing some of the textures and the details and the dimension a little bit. Let me turn this guy a little straighter so I make sure they're not too wonky looking. I mean, it's okay if they're off a little bit. One's sticking out more this way, one's more this way, but I wanted to make sure it wasn't too odd. Okay, so now I'm going to look a little bit at my concept, look a bit at this, and try and make sure that I stay kind of true to it. Now, it's okay if it goes off in a slightly different way. It's not a huge deal. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing these little teeth that I had down in the front. What's the other one that you don't have the ingredients? I'm just putting a little tooth here, knowing that I'm going to put the lower lip over top of it. But I want to go ahead and get this in for the depth of it. I'm going to put another small one right in front of that. Then we'll spin them around and do similar ones on the other side. My wife loves anything with a runny egg. I have to be in a specific mood for it. Plus, I'm trying to mainly eat egg whites these days, just because of my cholesterol. Damn being old. Excellent. It's a good one. Alright, I'm taking a little pinch of the Magic Sculpt and just rolling it into a cone and putting more pressure at the tops of my fingers than at the bottoms. So it'll roll up into a fang type shape. I'm going to let this sit on the outside of this snout, and then I'm going to do another small one in front. And once that starts to harden up a little bit, I'll come in and put a couple little textures into the teeth. I like having lines come up from the bottom of the tooth, just because it's fun to paint that. It's fun to have a little darker brown going there when it comes paint time. I'm just gently putting these on, knowing that the Magic Sculpt is going to greatly adhere to the other Magic Sculpt, and also I'm going to kind of encase that in a lower lip later on. But I dig having the teeth going on. Now it's time to start putting some of the kind of round bubble blisters and things that are going on its face. So I'm just going to go ahead and start rolling some different size balls of Magic Sculpt out, just so I have them ready to go, and then I'll just start popping them on, and once they're on, we'll go in and add some other textures in there. Let's see how interesting they get. The boils and bubbles and blisters. So I'm just grabbing some of this Magic Sculpt, pinching, rolling a ball, much like you would with Play-Doh or any other sort of sculpting material. Okay. Just gonna get the base shapes on here. Get some around here. And once they're on, I'll come back in, spray it down with some water, add some textures, and I think this will be fun. I want to go ahead and I'm going to make them a little bit smaller up around where the mouth is, and just because I want to make sure that I keep the personality that I'm starting to give it, even though it's slightly different in scale to the drawing. It's not quite exactly where I had it in the illustration. It's one thing when I'm not creating somebody else's creature and I'm making my own stuff, it's okay if it doesn't look exactly like the drawing. And adding all these little teeny tiny circles may look a little bit silly right now, but once they're all together, once they're blended down just a little bit, pushed down with some of the tools, I think it'll add for a very interesting texture to this critter. Gotta drop some more in here. We'll just keep going all the way around. And then knowing that there's going to be some bigger ones up near in the upper brow. I think this guy's going to be quite interesting once it's all said and done. Trying to start thinking about his backstory a little bit already. Because of the clothing that he's wearing, I almost feel like that he should be a noble of his kind, that or some sort of magic-wielding creature. He might be one of the mages amongst their group. Just need to think through when I'm starting to actually do the clothing and stuff, the textures that I'm putting in, the patterns that I'm putting in, see if I do anything where it has their own sort of runes or anything like that. Just add more and more circles to this guy. Put a couple more over here, and I think it's going to be time to bring them up into the upper brow. It's almost as though he's going to have a mask of these boils. And now you may notice that they're not perfectly clean, smooth circles at this point. They'll get smoother as I start to smooth them down with some water, and they'll blend into each other a little bit. I don't want them to just feel like round balls thrown on top of each other. So a lot of that will be with some of the tools that I use in a few minutes. Keep thinking that I'm going to put a gigantic one in here and it's going to look weird, so I'll put a little one there, put another little one up here. this guy a little closer to view. Alright, got some magic sculpt on the eye from last time. I'm gonna have to scrape that thing off. And I'll want to go in and make sure that I have a little more variation in some of the eyebrow, the balls on top of the eyebrow. And like right now I can see light coming through underneath them, so I'll make sure that those are smashed down a little bit more once we start smoothing it. Also make sure it gets a good grip on the previous edition of Magic Sculpt. Alright, I think he's starting to get there. I'm going to put one more down just a little bit lower for now. I'll probably come back in and put some more in around the ear once I have the ear sculpted in, but I want to leave enough room in case I build out the ear more and have like the different parts of the ear stick out a bit more. So let's go ahead and do this here. Let's give him a spray. Okay, with this initial spray, whoa, there goes a sculpting tool. Hopefully I don't need that one because that one made a good jump. I'm just going to smooth some of this down. And once I feel like I've gotten it smoothed a little bit, I'll come in with some of the sculpting tools and we'll start mashing some of these pieces together a little bit more. Alright, let's see. Today, let us use a shovel. Let me scrape this thing off a little bit. It's got a little bit of Magic Sculpt on it. Some of the black Magic Sculpt, some of the gray Magic Sculpt. Okay, this is just a little garden type shovel that I'm going to be using. It's got a nice little curve to it. It also has a bevel to it. So when I go in and I'm trying to merge these two together, it has a little bit of a nice bevel to it so it doesn't go straight through. It also has a point so I can get into some of the smaller places and really work it down in a little bit. And I'll need to keep adding a little bit of water here and there just to make it easy to smooth out. And this may not be the best tool the entire time that I'm in here, but for right now this is going to work pretty well. And you may find that you prefer some of the flat blade tools to this, or you might prefer a completely different tool. It's really what you enjoy sculpting with, because you can get very similar textures and lines, and you can get a lot of very similar approaches with different tools just depending on how you hold them and what you're comfortable with. What's up, Satora 2012? I thank you for the follow. Please let me know if you have questions about any of the things that I'm working on or anything else I might be knowledgeable about. So I'm just going to keep working these in together. And while I'm doing it, I'm kind of pushing down and getting some textures coming up too, because I don't want these to be really completely smooth, even though they kind of look like boils on my illustration. I think it's going to be more interesting to have some grooves in it, especially when it comes to the painting process. And hey, Art of Gaming, thank you very much for the follow. I hope your Wednesday has been filled with success and riches so far. I'm just going to keep working these balls that I place down together. It really does, when using this kind of angled shovel tool, it really pushes the two pieces together to help blend them. And once this Magic Sculpt fuses, like once the resin hardens, it will be completely fused to one another. I'm just going to blend it down into what is already hardened from the previous sculpting jam. Sometimes I just prefer to blend things in with my thumb in the areas that I can. Has that more that personal connection to the piece a little bit more when it's your actual hands as opposed to some of the tools. If anybody's in here that does any sculpting, I'd love to hear about different materials or tools that you guys use, because it's good to be able to learn from one another. Alright, so this this area around here is starting to come together. I'm going to pull some more details, or like little texture lines up into here, before we go in and start mashing some of the other bits together. Alright, gonna give this some more water because the water evaporates and dries up pretty quickly. Having a spray bottle with this Magic Sculpt has been like a complete game changer for me. Instead of having to dip my thumb in some water and try and smooth it down, just having one that you let the handle get all nasty from the buildup of the Magic Sculpt is a really good thing to have in your tool belt or your tool caddy or wherever you keep all of your magic. I'm gonna blend this stuff down just a little bit more over here. Try and pull it down with my thumb. And again, this is just building this creature up a good bit. Trying to make the rolled up balls of Magic Sculpt that I put on not just feel like they're just balls slapped on there, that they are all kind of fused and blended together. Just going to keep using that shovel tool. So if this guy is part of the noble houses of his type of creature, I need to think a little bit more about him for his individual story. Anybody have any ideas or thoughts on the story about this guy? I tend to write all the stories about my creatures after I've finished sculpting and painting them, just because their story can change based on what the personality they take on during the sculpting process. If I think too hard about the story beforehand, it will sometimes dictate where I go with the sculpting, and I may want to change things up a little bit. Like, I can tell already that right here needs another little bit of circly, boily type thing, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. Since the base there is already wet from me spraying it with water, it's able to blend in pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and blend that down into the part that's already been sculpted and pull some detail lines up into it. Blend that in just a little bit there. Alright, time for the upper brow. And here I'm going to just start blending that in a little bit with my thumb around the top, and then I'll come back in to blend the rest in. And bring this all together. So I went ahead and when I first sculpted it, I went ahead and put textures underneath the eyelids and stuff, just in case some of it came through. I didn't want to feel like there wasn't any texture underneath, even if I didn't put all of these kind of bubbly pieces on top of it. So it's important when you're doing layers of sculpting that if you think something might show through, go ahead and give it some texture, because there's nothing worse than seeing part of it underneath where it's like, wow, I can't get to it now because it's so tiny. I'm gonna spray it down a little bit more. Gonna wipe this tool off just a little bit to make sure I'm getting any buildup off as I go. I'll make it easier for getting cleaner lines. Putting some textures in. So these little grooves will really be apparent after it's been spray painted like a flat black color, and when I start going in and laying additional color down on top of it. Because those little tiny grooves will really catch like all the shadows and the darkness, so that the flatter, smoother pieces on top will really allow to have the contrast that I want this to have. Okay, I think that is a good start for that side. I want to flip it to the other side of this critter, start to see how that comes together, then I can come back and revisit it. Actually, before doing that, let's give a couple little notches into the teeth that I put in, since that's still soft. Give that a little bit of water spray, and basically when I do teeth, I like having a couple lines just coming up from the base. Just some small, thin grooves coming up. Depending on the size of the teeth, the more I have. Those can just have 3. Spin this guy around. And now, looking at him front on, you can see how got stuff built up on the one side. And once I do the other side, awesome, breakfast sounded good. Gonna build it up on top of it after we get these bumps on. You have anything exciting on your agenda today, Noble? All right, I'm gonna try and get this where it's in a good view, where I can work on it and you guys can see it well. For some reason, this side of the beast is always more problematic because of where I keep my camera angle. That's okay. I'm gonna start rolling up balls of this magic sculpt and just put them into place. This one's a lot bigger than any of the ones I have on the other side, but that's okay. And throw some more down. Now I'm just going to kind of move through quick, adding a bunch of different shapes, different ball shapes on here so that I can get this stuff worked in. Oh, damn. Totally forgot to plug in my power supply for my laptop when I moved it from my work computer. Gotcha, I just asked if you had anything exciting going on today. And I'm going to step away from the camera for just a moment to grab my power supply from my laptop so I don't run out of power. Excuse me for the reach. There we go. All right. Pull myself back up. There we go. I'm just going to add a few more little bumps around here to try and even it up with the other side. I want to make sure to leave some room away from the ear so that when I do start sculpting the ears out, I have room to grow and breathe with that if I need to. I think after we get these ball pieces put on, start doing some more on top of the head. Definitely have to mix up some more magic sculpt at that point. And shoot, I think it's going to be time for me to order some more in just another day or two, I would believe. I'm burning through this stuff now that I'm streaming and doing a lot, keeping the sculptures flowing on a regular basis. Right on. How old is your nephew? My son is turning 7 tomorrow. Very excited about him getting to play with presents and see some friends and family this weekend. Awesome. One is a very cute age. Definitely just at least for us, it was definitely the sit around and stare and talk and sit around and stare and talk part. Like once they start getting to like two and a half, 3, and the storytelling starts working really well with them, and then the adventures really begin. Oops, dropped a little bit on the floor. Add this little speck up here. Do you get to see him very often? When my sister first had my niece, it was amazing getting to interact the first all the times, but at first it was such a new experience to us because we hadn't had kids yet. All right, I'm gonna put one more down on here, then I'm gonna spin this guy around, and I'm gonna see what he looks like. Hey Amber, how are you doing today? Thank you for the follow. I'm gonna spin this guy and see if he's looking pretty even right now. Awesome. Once or twice a month is great. It's a lot better than a lot of folks get to see nieces and nephews, and 5 is flipping amazing. And it just really depends on the kid as to what their personality's like and the type of stuff they'll naturally gravitate towards. But 5 is definitely a solid age for our son. I'm gonna spray this around with some water now that I've got all those pieces on that I want to kind of make out the shape and the foundation for the stuff around this guy's eye. And I'm just gonna try and smooth down some of the parts with my thumbs and then come back in with the tools a little bit and get some of those rough lines out, smoothing it down, blending it in. And once I get these in, we'll start taking that shovel tool again and starting to blend some of these, fade some of these pieces into one another. If anybody's watching that hadn't been watching before, I'm just taking this sculpting tool that to me reminds me of like a little garden shovel. It's a little bit dirty right now, so it might be a little hard to see, but it's got angle on it, and it's also got a curve. So when I'm going to start push these pieces together, because they're different pieces of Magic Sculpt that I've rolled up and threw on, it makes it easier for fading them and blending them together because it comes in at an angle. It also allows me to start pulling some interesting textures up into these shapes. And just by pushing the Magic Sculpt together in the seams where the pieces come together, that's going to help them bond and fuse together as this starts to cure. And again, with just pulling this stuff up. Just talking random stuff. 2 days ago, in the mail, I had ordered this tablet that's called the Slate 2, which basically allows you to put down a piece of paper that has a magnet that you put around a pencil or a pen, and you draw on the piece of paper, and it recognizes the pencil movement. So it then translates that into a digital capture of it. I haven't quite figured out the settings well enough where I'd be like, wow, yeah, I can take that same digital drawing and print it and it'll look great. But one of the coolest things for me about it is that while it's drawing, it records every pencil stroke. So you can then export it as a little short video later. So it's like you can see the whole sketching process as it goes. I need to play around with it some more to really figure out how to get the pencil weight and the weight and the width to capture a little better, but it's really fun. Well, it must mean that you are fun to be around and you have a good imagination, would be my guess, because kids always tend to gravitate towards that. And most kids have good instincts as well. I'm going to hopefully do another couple drawings later tonight to play around with the settings on that slate. At first, when I first started doing it, I was kind of skeptical about it the first drawing or two that I did, and then I started to get the hang of it, and I was like, wow, this is going to be totally rad just for showing how I draw. Because I really do. Almost every creature I start out with, I start out doing circle, circle, and then seeing where it goes. And just, I think I need to put some more water down on this to help smooth it all in a little bit. Wipe this tool off. Yeah, I don't usually see many kids at my job, but I work out of the house, and the kids I do see are my own, so they're kind of used to me. Keep blending these together. Noble, was it Saturday that you were watching? Sorry, some of my days are starting to blend together, and I'm not, since I don't have faces to go with the Twitch names. It's harder for me. Like convention mode, if I was at like a comic convention or stuff, totally recognize your face and roughly when we last interacted. Alright, I got some texture in there. I'm going to smooth this down just a little bit because it was a little too much. Now I'm going to spin this guy around just a little. Oh, right on. Cool. And I didn't get, if you look in the front, I didn't smooth that down and blend it in there. So now I've got to squirt some water in and blend it in up there. Now I'm just kind of taking it along the side and just kind of pushing it down into the base that's already dry. And then I'll come back in and smooth it down just a little bit with my finger. But this will at least get it down on there. But I don't want to have any weird roughness from the sculpting tool. Alright, now I'll just blend that just down in just a little bit with my finger, and then go ahead and add some of that texture that I added throughout the rest of it, bringing that up just a little. Do some over here too, because I missed that. Next up, we've got to put some texture in that tooth. These teeth over here. I'm going to squirt those down just a little bit. That tooth has a little bit of a sag to it, so I'm going to push it just a little bit this way. Alright. Now I'm going to bring in some, just like 3 lines in the tooth, maybe 4. And those will be good for me to go ahead and start putting a lower lip on, perhaps on the next sculpting session of this guy. And some of this stuff I can always come back in and sculpt more into it because I'm going to have to make it fit with the creature itself. So, now that we've got these big ridges around the eyes, the center area, yeah, it's never cool to take kids that are from anywhere from like 2 to like 7 or 8. Hey, Cave Mold Jellyfish, why thank you for the follow. I hope, welcome to my creature curations. Yes, like I would never take my kids to a fancy restaurant at all. It would just be a pain in the ass and nobody wants to be around that. I'd much rather eat with them at home where they can feel comfortable and not feel like they have to be completely still all the time. Alright, I'm going to build up the top of this guy a little bit. I don't want to come down like from like here down, from the snout down much, because I'm not exactly sure how I want to handle the textures there, because I feel like that's almost like more beak-like. But I do know I want to build up this a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and start building that up, and then we'll probably get what's left of this magic sculpt on, and then have to mix up another batch. So for this, because of where it is and not adjusting the camera, I'm going to go ahead and stand up so that I can make sure I get this at a good angle and make sure I'm working this in right. So I'm just took a big chunk of the magic sculpt. I'm just slowly pushing it down with my thumb. I'm going to go ahead and do the same over on the back part. But with the back, because I have this kind of ridge that I see coming up, almost like a built-in mohawk on these guys, I'm going to go ahead and do this as more of a coil and start to lay that down on top. Now that we have this, since it looks like 2 big blobs on top of the sculpture, now I'm going to go ahead and squirt this with water and start to smooth it into what's there. I'll start with camera side, because that would make sense and be more respectful of you guys. And now I'm going to figure out where to grab onto this, because as the magic sculpt has been starting to go for almost, it's been starting to cure for about 45 minutes or so. It starts to get, you got to put a little more muscle into it. So I want to make sure I grab onto this real good as I'm blending it all in. And just blending these pieces together. Oop. Now to squirt it down with some more water. Usually the more water you work in, the easier it blends. and keep working that in. Now I'm going to blend in the stuff that's up here, and before we're done with this part, we'll end up starting to put some texture in, but first I want to really make sure that the shape is pretty close to where I want the shape to be. It's okay if this isn't straight. I want it to have kind of an organic feel, like maybe he's had a couple of brawls or fights along the way, or had some sort of spells cast at him. Okay, got that part in. Now let's blend this side in. Make sure you guys have a good view. And I think after I get this bit done, well, no, I was thinking maybe we could start doing some more work on the blade that I'm working on, because I'd like to see that come together a little bit more too. Okay, using this water to just really smooth it on in. Knowing that I'll probably come back in later and add some more to it, and I almost want it to come up a bit more in the back, so I'm just working it down in the front and just pinching my fingers together as I pull it back to kind of pull some of that clay back. Wow, that's awesome. All right, I think that's good, a good shape right there. Cow-like, mohawky. All right, now I want to start putting a little bit of texture in there, but first there's some spots over here that I want to kind of push down into the rest of it. Let's spin it so you guys can see it. Right here there's a little bit of a crease there, or a hole, where I want to go ahead and squirt with some water and just use that same shovel tool that I was using and just kind of shove it down inside of there so it looks a little more natural, like there's a reason why there's that hole there, like it's coming up out of there. And then I'll do the same over here. And I'll do it under all of those larger like bump areas on its head, just so it kind of all looks the same and feels like it's a similar shape in this critter. Alright, I like how that is starting to go, though I feel like he needs some more texture to him. So I'm going to use one of the texture maps that I use pretty regularly. Thanks, man. Right on. Thanks for stopping in. Hope your day goes well, Jordan. I will talk with you soon. Alright, I'm going to spray this pretty thoroughly with some water. I'm going to take, this is a rubber texture map that I got. I call it a texture map. I don't know what the real term is. I got it at a hobby shop. I'm just going to push this down just a little bit. I'll put some into the top piece. I'm going to do it over on this side as well, but this will quickly give some texture to your creature that will be fun to paint later. And they have a bunch of different ones of these, and you can also do like interesting things with rocks and different natural textures like bark on trees to just kind of roll and push textures down into things. Okay, with this I'm trying to pinch this up so I can get it down into the crevice there without affecting the kind of bubbly bumps too much. So I did get some on there, but one of the nice things about this magic sculpt is I spray it with some water, smooth it down with my thumb, and before you know it, it has all blended in together pretty well. Alright, this guy's starting to take some good form. I'm liking how this creature's going. For the folks that are in the chat, since I'm about to mix up some more magic sculpt, would you rather see me continue on this guy, or would you like to see me start work on the other side of this blade that I have going on? If you can see all of it, I can't even tell. Let's see. It's got a strange bone-like blade with a handle. I did one side, the other side I'm going to build up the same way, build out the handle. I will let you guys respond since I'm always on a delay with chat while I start mixing up some more magic sculpt. Again, for anybody that is not familiar with magic sculpt, it is a two-part air drying resin that you mix the two parts, part A and part B, together. to form this sculpting material that will air dry. It starts to set up and cure in about an hour and then really hardens overnight. Thank you. So is that a vote for continuing on the blade or continuing on this creature? Amber. Because I need to, on the blade, I only did the 1/2 while I was doing it because I needed that to set up before I could flip it over and do the other side. So we've got the Magic Sculpt. The dark one is a resin. No, the dark one's a hardening agent. Catch me in my lies. This one, on the other hand, is the resin. And I'm going to try and get a similar size ball for that. Right on. Well then, I will wait to see if anybody else weighs in, but if no one else weighs in, I will start doing the blade. And we will let this guy dry up a little bit before we add more to him. And we'll take just a slight adjustment on the camera angle, as I'll need to adjust just a bit. But I'll go ahead and mix up the Magic Sculpt before that happens, and just see if anybody else cares either way. Plus then, if I finish this blade up, he will dry and be ready to be painted. So, for the Magic Sculpt, roll out a coil. I'm going to roll out this. Right on. I totally understand. Okay, I'm going to roll this one out. Well, and I've got about an hour left before I've got to get back to work. So I'm just going to, let's go ahead and mix this up. Since I did show pictures of both in my my Instagram and Twitch and Facebook posts and all that stuff, I'll work on the blade some after we get this Magic Sculpt mixed, taking the two colors and trying to make them one. Yes, so the eye is a glass taffon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that word right. It's basically like a partial disc that I ordered, and then I designed the eyes in Photoshop and Illustrator and print them out on a heavy stock paper. I then use Mod Podge glue to coat the outside of the paper to kind of seal it, and then I do another coat of that to have it attached to the glass. Then I cut that out with an X-Acto, flip that, and then put more Mod Podge on the back, and then the eye is done. I used to order my eyes from a couple different taxidermy shops, and they just didn't have the variety they have a huge variety. But when you start wanting to make all of your own creatures and have things be unique to other things, you want to start to make your own. Plus, it's a lot cheaper to make your own. Alright. Once the two colors are completely blended together, then you know you are in good shape to move forward with the Magic Sculpt. So that being said, thank you. I'm going to take my gloves off for a minute. I'm going to grab a flat surface to put the blade down on. That is not my cutting board that's down there now. We'll adjust the camera in just a second. Stand by as I move this guy out of the way. Gonna move this blade here. We'll adjust the camera. Shouldn't take but a moment or two to adjust. Sorry for any weird earthquakey movement as I twist things around. Alright, well that went by a lot faster than I thought. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the concept sketch layer, I think. Unless OBS decides that it doesn't want me to. Alright. Now it's time to continue on the dagger. I will put gloves back on. Thank you, Noble. I appreciate that. So the dagger, I kind of wanted it to feel like it was fused out of some sort of bone. And then I also put a real animal skull on it. I can't remember what type of animal that is. And And so I did this side, and I wanted the handle to almost feel like it was made from this the fiery pits, which is the volcanic region in my world of Revelo, where all my creatures come from. So I want the handle to have that feel. I want the rest of it to feel like it was made from bone, perhaps from one of the original gods from my world that are, or maybe one of their familiars. So that being said, where's my Sharpie? There's a Sharpie. I'm going to come in here and give myself an idea of where I want the thinnest part to thin down to, which was kind of around here, because I wanted to bring up at a bevel, much like some of the sculpting tools that I use, because I like how it kind of angles up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and roll some coils out and put those down. Now the handle itself, my business partner and friend Russ took some toy guns and started making molds of some of the handles so that he could make some ray guns. And he gave me that, and I decided that I kept holding it thinking, yeah, it would be cool to make like a steampunk type gun that could work in my setting, but I kept going back in my head to like, damn, it'd be awesome to make a dagger or some sort of weird like scimitar type thing. So that's where it ended up. And this with the Magic Sculpt, with this I did a base on it, much like I did for the ears of the creature that we were working on just a minute ago. I did a really rigid board material that I put in, then I did a thin coat of Magic Sculpt on top so it would harden up and get that rigid sturdiness that I needed before coming back in and adding more Magic Sculpt to it. Now with this, I'm just going to use my thumb to mash it down to the line that I had. And from here, we'll just get pieces in place before we start smoothing it with water. And every now and again, I'm going to compare side to side, knowing that it doesn't have to be 100%. It doesn't have to be the same on each side, but it's nice if it's fairly symmetrical. All right, I think we've got enough in there now to spray it down and start smoothing this stuff in. In a few minutes, after we get a little of this in, I'll go grab so this is my second weapon that I've ever made. I haven't really done much in the way of cosplay stuff, but I like the idea of making stuff, cosplay type materials for characters and creatures that are in my setting that nobody's going to know about except me or the few people that read the things I put about my creatures online. But so I thought that if I start making weapons from my world, that would be a lot of fun. So for Halloween, I made a Warhammer that's from my world. In a few minutes, I'll grab some of that. I might grab that off the shelf just to show you guys. And I didn't make that Warhammer from scratch. I bought like a $15 hammer at like a Halloween store, and then I just sculpted on top of it, added my own eyes, painted it up, added leather around the handle to kind of just make like semi-homemade cosplay weapon. Okay. Damn, this song always gets stuck. For some reason that song just gets stuck on an infinite loop, it feels like. Okay, I'm gonna keep blending this in. And this is totally getting some weight to it now that it's got like a lot of Magic Sculpt to it. I thought about possibly taking this and making a silicone mold of it and casting it out of resin to sell multiples of it, but I don't know what sort of interest level there would be in some weird ass bone blade. Only because like silicone material for something like this would easily probably cost $100 just to do, maybe a little more, like $100 just for the silicone. Just finding spots where it feels like it needs to blend in a little bit more, and then from here I'll go in and compare this side to the other side a bit more. Just want it to feel as clean and natural of a bone dagger as possible. Okay. So now I'm trying to, it's going to be hard for you guys to see at this angle, but I'm just trying to go up and smooth things out and and pull them in similar ways and to each side. But so far, I think it's coming together pretty well for equal parts. Ooh, that one's getting my thumb muscles. Okay, I think that one's pretty good. I need to adjust this little, like, fish gutter hook that's on here to make that feel a little more legit. Something about it just looked kind of sloppy. So, got to blend this one in a little, try and get a good point. Probably a little more water will help with that. And almost all of this piece here has primarily been done just smoothing things out with my hand. I used a couple of tools to get some grooves on this side, and then I used a rock to get the texture on this handle here. So, awesome. You should totally paint an owl. Or an owlbear. What are you going to paint it out of? Are you going to paint like acrylics, watercolors, digital? Alright. I'll go ahead and put some lines in this, and then we'll move on and start sculpting on the handle a bit. Excellent. I thoroughly enjoy painting in watercolors. Do you have a site where you post your watercolors to? I'm just cleaning up this tool. You can use other tools that you have to scrape off some of the buildup of the Magic Sculpt. You can also use an X-Acto blade. I'm just cleaning this off so I can get some nice, smoother lines. Okay, I'm gonna spray this down a little bit. Look at the other side to get a good idea of my grooves that I got going on there. So these are just really light grooves that I have going on. I don't want to put anything too major in. Just wanted to give it something for some added color and texture when dry brushing this later on. Right on. Well, I'd like to see some of your watercolors. You've been kind enough to watch me make some of the random stuff I make. And I'm just adding some more of these lines, a couple more, and then we'll move on to working on the handle. So I'm gonna put a little bit around here because I really don't want any of the plastic to show through. Not that it will once it's all painted up, but I really want it to all feel a little more organic than the rigidness that that this has. Almost make this feel like it's the fusion of the bone and the stone from the fiery pits. And then when it comes time to doing the handle, I'm going to put down really thin coating because the handle's already pretty big. Like, if you've got smaller hands than me, and I wear medium-sized gloves, you're going to have a hard time gripping that all the way around. Okay, I'll spray this guy down and smooth it down with some water. Smooth, smooth, smooth. Alright, now we're just going to keep fusing this in. This will completely bond to the plastic. There's not going to be any issues with that at all. But now, let's pancake this stuff out and smash it down. I'm going to try and cover as much of this as I can with what we've got before having to mix up a little bit more Magic Sculpt. Heck, we may get as far as we can with this dagger and then go back to that goblin-like creature. Excellent. My pinky still has yet to touch the Magic Sculpt, so I do not feel afraid to click on my computer. Although everything seems to be moved slow when I've got OBS going. So if I can't scroll, there we go. Nice. I like how the galaxy in the background, the colors blend into one another. This is not loading up. Alright, I'm going to have to check that out later because it's just not going. Hey, Nocturnal85. Thank you for the follow. I hope your day is going awesome. Right now we're working on a dagger type blade. And probably going to get back to another creature in a little bit. Right on. One of my favorite things about watercolors is just letting things flow where they want to flow. Because I feel like if you can try and control the watercolors too much, they're not being allowed to do what they want to do. Plus, sometimes it's just fun to be messy. Just going to keep working this around until we start putting that stone texture in. And I think I want to put some things coming down. It's hard to, once you have something, it's hard to replicate things. At least for me, it's very hard to try and replicate exactly what was done before. Which is good, it keeps you going in different directions. Okay, got most of that handle thrown down. Yeah, I don't think I would be able to accomplish that either. For some reason, I always tend to stay away from black when I'm doing most of my watercolors, though. That could be why I wouldn't be able to achieve something like that if I'm not putting that darkness in that's going to kind of help make all the other colors stand out. Gonna put some around the knuckle holes. I think this is going to be a fun blade once it's all painted up. I really need to put some stuff down around the spike tooth thing that's down at the bottom. And that needs a little more clay on top of it. You can tell where that one kind of, the weight of it laid down when this was drying. Is there too much water down there? Sometimes when you're working on something like this and you spray it with water, it makes it hard for other things to stick. So you gotta damp dry it a little bit with a paper towel. I think we almost have enough of this covered to start smoothing down. Let's see, trying to figure out a good place to grab onto while pushing this magic sculpt in so I'm not messing up anything that I've already laid down. So since I couldn't really take a look at the tumbler right away, so what's most of the subject matter that you do when you paint, Noble? I'll push this down. All right, I think that's enough to really smooth it around. We should have most of the area covered once I start blending. So since I put some magic sculpt down, once I get the water on, I should be able to just smooth it and work it around and around until everything's covered. And keep pushing. I'm sure there will be some holes where I'm going to need to add a little bit more to. I don't think I'm going to be able to completely finish this today, so I think I'm going to want to add some more once this part's dry. And I do want to make sure that like here where the finger holes are, that it doesn't feel flattened at all. I want it to feel kind of have a little bit more of an organic feel to it. But then I should probably look at the other side and make sure that that coincides with what I was thinking on Saturday when I was working on this. And keep smoothing this down a little bit more. Looking in the holes here to figure out where it needs a little bit of love. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit more in here where right now I can just see the plastic. I'm gonna smooth that down. I'm gonna grab it by this teeny little horn and make sure I don't have any pieces like that coming through, or like this, so that I can smooth it all down, not have it dry like that and look completely awkward later. So this will just have to come through and make sure that we smash down with some of the rocks for some of the detail and textures. Oh, and you can't see a thing. Sorry, guys. All right, gotta turn this back on this side. Got a couple more little holes to figure out, and then it'll be time to throw some texture into this handle. Put a little bit more up in here, and we'll spray it down. And I'm going to be just smoothing this around. Again, I'll grab it by this horn just to make sure the other side looks okay. Make sure I'm not messing anything up too bad. All right, right here, smooth that in. It's a little small to be a cat skull, though. Since it's a, might be a squirrel skull? Years ago, my wife got me a bunch of random bones off of eBay. So I think that's what that one's from. Also, one of my friends found a whole possum skeleton at his parents' lake house years ago, and he gave that to me. So I have amassed a strange accumulation of small bits and pieces of skulls. All right, I'm going to go over to my shelf and grab a rock. Ah, good call. I'm going to grab a rock and start mashing down into that. Perhaps that's why my cats have stayed away from me while I've been sculpting on this one. You can see one of my 3 cats sleeping in my work chair. Okay, for this I'm just going to grab this rock that I textured the other side with. This was a rock that was just in my backyard. It's got lots of good like textures to it, and so I've used this to add texture to my pieces as well. So I just spray it down and I just start pushing in, and I'll roll it in different ways because the rock has different textures all over it. I don't want to keep putting the exact same spot in every time, so trying to get different areas of the rock will help add slightly different textures to the handle itself. And this will help when I start to paint it, help make it feel like it was made out of the rock from the lava area in my world. And I'm going to spin it, holding it underneath the part of the blade that's dry, because I want to make sure I want to spray in here and get some of this texture in the top part of the handle as well. Is that pumice? I do not know. I'm bad with knowing what stones are. This was just in my backyard. I'm not a geologist. You can use all sorts of crazy stuff out of nature, though, to add really good textures to sculptures. You can also like do castings out of things that you find in nature, make silicone castings, and then cast those out of resin to add to pieces. Like as an example, I'm going to grab a piece real quick. I don't know if it floats. I've not tried putting it in water. It's not super light, but it's not super heavy. This creature here is not done yet. I still need to finish its hands and its feet. But if you notice the white parts on its back, those were pieces that were from a silicone mold that I cast out of resin, a liquid resin that turns to solid plastic, and I put those on top to give it ridges along this creature's back. So you can find all sorts of different tricks to working different materials into your sculptures to make them have good textures and also sculpt them faster. One of the things I'm going to do on this handle, because on all of my current creatures I'm putting in a stamp that's my creature curation stamp, so I'm going to work this right in here. I'm just going to squirt this with a little bit of water, smooth a little area out, just to give myself a little area to press this down, and then I'm going to make sure it's facing upright and jam that down inside of it. So now once the ink washes away and I paint it, it'll have the little C that kind of looks like a monster. That's my little logo area type thing. Alright, this is getting there. I've got a little bit of Magic Sculpt left. I do want to kind of work on this area around here. I want to build that up and kind of have that almost coming out, but I think, well, I'll go ahead and work on this part with this little bit here and see what happens. And then we'll have to come into the other side once this is dry, or see if I can figure out a way to really handle it gently. Basically, I want to put some sort of like ridge around here so that this fang type hook doesn't look like it's just coming up out of nowhere. Let's see what I can do here. Maybe I can make it almost all the way around before mixing up some Magic Sculpt. Okay, I'm going to just smooth this around with my fingers, try and give it a ridge, try and blend it into the rest of it. Now I'm going to grab it by the skull and this hook and hope that I can grab it well enough to not, let's see, I balance it on the skull. I can spin this around. Some points when you're working with this stuff and you've got stuff that's soft and you just want to try and make sure you're not ever going to put anything down that could then get smashed and lose the details that you've spent time getting in. But I think I'm going to get this all the way around. And then we'll just add some texture to it, and that will be, I think that'll be good. Okay, taking that around. Now I'm just using gravity and the angle of this hook to try and keep it in place. Alright, now let's put some lines in here, and I think that little bit will be pretty good. Holding it with this hand, I'm going to switch hands since I like to sculpt with my right hand since I'm right-handed. I'm going to spray this just a little bit more, and I'm just going to bring some straight lines down. And I'll probably just blend that in as we go, blend it in along the top. Okay, I'm gonna have to grab this by the cat skull and let it hang down. So when it gets down at this height, it makes it harder to go at a certain angle. But that's okay. Let's see what happens there. I wanted to kind of pull the clay down just a little bit as I went. Now I'll just smooth this out around the top. Now we're going to flip it. Figure out where to hold on to. Hold on right there. Whoa. This will work. And then pull down. I'm going to keep coming around this way. Going to blend at the top. Alright. Looks like we've... Oh, no, we haven't made it all the way around. Or have we? Yeah, we have. Alright, I'm going to spray this in. Alright, so that being said, yeah, that's the soft side. Made a lot of progress on this guy today. Added the other side of the blade, added the handle part, got the skull still in place, added a little bit down here. I'm probably going to need to come in and use a Dremel to carve out a little of this, just to get that cleaned up a little bit. But overall, I think that is pretty much set for how that one's going to be. I may come back and, since I'm going to be making some teeth soon, I may throw some teeth up into here. I don't know. But we'll see. That'll be a different time once I've actually cast those teeth out of resin. So for now, I'm going to move this guy back. We've got about 30 minutes left, so I'm going to get back to working on the goblin-type creature. My gloves aren't super dirty, so I'm going to go ahead and dare touch my computer. I'm going to turn the concept drawing back on. Any questions on this blade so far? And let's see, I'll bring this guy back up. That'll be time to make a little bit more magic sculpt. This was a pretty, whoa, oh, damn, right on top of my microphone. Got a little bit of magic sculpt in the microphone. That's okay. Let's see. Get him a little more in place to where I'm comfortable sculpting. And twist. Alright. Alright, let's do a little bit more on this guy. Nope, too high. Drop it down. Alright. Now that we're moving back to this guy, I'm going to feel how his ears still need to firm up a little bit more before adding anything to him. So I think now it's going to be going in, adding some more to the back of the neck, a little bit of texture around here to the throat, and we'll build all that out so that on the next sculpting session we can work on the ears and then start working on some of the clothing. So, I'm going to grab the magic sculpt, and I'm going to, this bucket is looking almost empty. I totally need to buy some more. Alright, gonna grab out, try and scrape the walls of this to pull some of this magic sculpt out. I'm not gonna mix up too much right now, because I know I've only got about a half hour of today's stream left. Let's go for a smaller ball of it. That's about the same size as the last one, but I'll go ahead and do that one. Hey, Malkalouche, thank you for the follow. Welcome to my creature curations. Today we've been working on two different things, jumping back and forth. Been working on this, worked on a blade, and now back to this guy. And then I'm pulling out the hardening agent. And that pulled out way more than the resin. And again. Alright, I think that'll be good to go with. We're going to mix these two together. The easiest way I've found to mix the two together is to make coils of each one, twist them together, and then just work them into one another until the two colors become one. So I'm going to try and just work this down into a coil, like rolling out a snake. And then I'm just going to drop that down on my board for a minute. Coil this one out. This one definitely is, there's way more hardening agent in this than there is resin, but that's okay. Just means it's going to start to cure faster, which means I've got to work quicker, which since I've got to get back to work in 30 minutes, that's okay. I'm taking the two, you can see the lighter and darker of the two parts of Magic Sculpt twisting together, and I'm just going to keep working them into one another. I apologize for the sticky sound that it makes against my nitrile gloves. Hopefully it will not be too bad. But you just keep working it back and forth, rolling it into coils together, pulling it till there's no marbleization, no streams of dark gray, no streams of light gray. They're all just the same gray. Keep pulling. Almost there. It goes pretty quick. Just gotta keep working it till you know that it's uniform. Alright, we're almost there. I can see little bits of marbleization, so probably one more twist around and roll out should be pretty good. So, since we're going to start by adding some more texture and building up the neck, the back of the head, since we started working on the top of the head, let's go ahead and see. I want to build up back here a little bit. I'm not going to go too far underneath here since I am going to turn that into clothes, but I do want to start adding texture. I've easily learned how to tune out almost all kids shows. When kids get a little older, like my son, since he's going to be 7, certain things like start becoming a lot better. Like Teen Titans Go is pretty awesome, but the little kid shows they're pretty rough. I found myself quickly disappearing into my imagination. Okay, I'm gonna keep basically I'm just flattening out this magic sculpt to lay down layers of it across so that I can then smooth it down and start to add textures to it. So what show are you having the privilege of watching right now, Noble? Okay, I'm gonna keep smashing this down, adding some more. I'm gonna go ahead and add a thin layer over top of what I put on Saturday that's already dry, so we can start to add some textures in there. Hey Spaz Man, thank you for the follow. I hope your day is going well. Yeah, luckily neither of my kids are into that one. I know which one you're talking about though, because I see their toys when I go into TRU. But it's good to help, yeah, it's good to help people with their Paw Patrol. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start working this one down into the creature to start getting some texture in and smoothing it down at least a little bit. And the layers, poking myself in the back of this thing with the screws that are back there, the layers here don't have to be super thick for them to get texture. I generally like to work at least 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch at a minimum on top of the styrofoam bases that I use, just to make sure they've got a good coating. Every now and again you'll get it where you'll feel like there's an air bubble underneath. You just poke a hole in it and then just keep smoothing it down. And this is going to smooth very easily on top of the previously sculpted magic sculpt. But I will go ahead and give this whole thing around here a coating, even though I'm going to put clothing on top of it, like sculpt clothing on top of it later. At least this will give it some more sturdiness and build it up in the way that you would imagine that the creature is being built up, so the clothing lays down over top of it. Yeah, at 18, you really shouldn't have to. But, you know, a visit every once a month should be pretty bearable. As I hear my daughter screaming in the background in the rest of the house. Okay, I'm just going to keep smoothing this in. So the back of this piece, once it's all done, I will end up carving out a wooden, not carving, I'll use a jigsaw, and cut out a wooden plaque that I'll design for it to be mounted to, so that it looks like a traditional taxidermy beast, but with a fancier plaque to go on. Totally, but you know, adoption is always a good thing. Gonna keep smoothing this down. Forgot I'd laid some down back here, which needs to be sprayed down and smoothed out. Yeah, I was not anywhere near thinking about kids when I was 18. But I'm also 40 now, so now's a very good time for me to have some kid focus in my life. It's not as weird for me to go into the toy store looking at toys when I've got two youngins with me. Right on. Those are great ages for kids in need. Because most people usually want kids when they're really young. So it'd be awesome if you could do that. Okay. Just put a layer on there. I'm gonna do a layer on the other side as well. And then from here we'll start putting some textures in and some details. I do want the back of the head to kind of bump up a little more in the back. So I think I'll put, let me make sure he's in view. I'm gonna put a little more build up in the back here, just so that even if I don't add the like mohawky ridge to it now, so I have the foundation for the skull to kind of go back a little bit further. Well, I was certain that we were going to have two boys, and we ended up having a boy and a girl, and holy crap, the difference in the two of them, the personalities, what they're into, it's awesome to have variety. Damn it, I keep putting my hand in the magic sculpt. It's still soft. Alright, smoothing this down. Smoothing this down. Focus on not grabbing anywhere else on this beastie. Just adding this bump to the back of this guy. As long as it doesn't come back past where the back is, then it's going to work out okay. If I ever overshot the back here, I'd have to end up sanding it down or cutting it down once it was done so that it would mount to whatever plaque I make for it. Okay, now that I've got that basic shape on there, it's going to be time to add some more over here. And gonna add some more down the side. And gonna spray this down to see what area it'll start to cover. So, Noble, with the watercolors, do you do any other art as well? And is that something that you want to pursue in life? I definitely feel this is a little firmer, having the extra hardening agent in from what I normally do. Definitely getting some weird bubbles in here that I don't usually get. Pop, pop, pop. Get some of that air out. Right on. I like messing with acrylics on canvas every now and again, but I'm nowhere near as good. I don't have nearly as good a response to my canvas paintings as I do to my sculptures. And honestly, I really like feeling the sculpting in my hands as I go. It's much more relaxing and satisfying, especially after sitting at a computer most hours of the day. Hold on to this and work this magic sculpt in, and once this is worked in, it's going to be time to start adding some texture to what we just laid down. We're actually moving pretty fast through this round of magic sculpt. See how much time's left once it's done. May add a little bit to it. I don't know. Smooth it down. should be able to see how it just blends right into the stuff that's already dry and just kind of the lines disappear, just fades into one another. And keep smoothing. Right on. I've never painted a Pokemon. I'm going to spray this a little bit, smooth this out just a little more to even that up a little. There we go. Okay, so now I've got this layer of Magic Sculpt on the back, a little bit more, a layer on the front here, and I need to start adding some texture, and I feel like parts of it should have some of the texture that I put into the head earlier. So I'm going to put some of that around here, and then I'm going to, once I get it kind of over a whole lot of it, I'm going to come back in and smooth some of it out with my thumb so that it's not just an overwhelming amount of that texture. So this is just a rubber texture map that has kind of a rocky type texture terrain to it. Terrain, that's not the word, but that's okay for this. Just want to get some textures in. A little bit here, a little bit here. You just spray this side down. And add a little over here. Go ahead and get a dab up here. A little there. Alright. And now I'm going to get some other tools to start putting a couple grooves in, so it's got some other lines, and then I'll really come in and smooth things down a bit. So I want to get some more lines in up here, and then smooth it out just a bit. Some lines up here, and smooth it out. Some lines coming up out of here. Awesome. I will take a look at that once we close things out. Or once the gloves are off. Pull these down just a little. Do you go to any cons near you, Noble? I'll pull that down. Pull that one and that. I'm just going to keep adding some lines to this because it adds a little more interest to the form. That's a little drier up there. Smooth some of this stuff down, some of these textures. I don't want it to be overwhelming amount of that texture, just a little hint of it. And I'm going to pull some in from up top. Pull this down. And a little over here as well. Smooth some of that marking out. All right. So I think adding that was pretty good. Let's see if this thing's still moving a little. Yeah. Since that was just from an hour and a half ago, move that tooth just a little bit because it wasn't quite situated how I wanted it. I'm gonna spray a little bit of water right here. See if I can smooth this down. I know that one was just as old, so it might not. I'll just add some lines in here, and that'll blend that in a bit. Ha! Right on. So when you left, yeah, he's come along quite a way. And also, hey, Dark Knight 1701A, why thank you for the follow, and welcome to my creature curations. Carrie, when you left, had I started doing the other side of the dagger? Because the other side of the dagger is pretty much done, but it needs to cure and dry before I do anything else to it. Okay. So, next thing on this guy, I need to do a little more up here. Like, I feel like the ridges around the eye might be a little too... They may be okay. I don't know. I think I need to bring in some of these, but we really need to work on these ears if they're not set up well enough. I guess we could start putting in some of the other texture under here and start building out the clothing a little bit for this critter. And I could start working on the lower lip that's going to be built up a little bit more so that the teeth don't just look like they're hanging out on top. So since we got 15 minutes left before I got to call it quits, let's mix up just a little bit more Magic Sculpt. I'm going to try and do this one pretty quick, just so that I can get back to the working. And then I'll probably, I don't know when I'll finish this guy up. Maybe I'll work on it a little bit Saturday night during my next stream from 9:30 to 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But I also may be doing some silicone mold making. I think the silicone came all during this stream, so I'll probably be doing demos on how to make molds. I think what I'm going to be making is just simple one-part molds, because I don't believe I have anything that I want to make a two-part mold of, unless I decide I want to make that dagger into a giant mold. But that's a big flipping piece. I think I'll hold off on that. So I'll just be doing one-part mold making on Saturday. I've got to start putting together a whole bunch of like little tiny small pieces. I've got a couple of holiday-themed like marketplace shows that are one-day events, one in Chattanooga and one in Atlanta, coming up at the beginning of December, and I need to start cranking out some small pieces for people to walk away with to give as gifts. So I've got to make some molds and make some stuff out of resin, like fast-drying resin that I can then paint and all that stuff. Make some magnets. So if you've never watched anybody make a silicone mold, Saturday would probably be a good time to check out my stream or watch it after the fact. But if you watch it while it's live, I'm happy to answer any questions in my knowledge base of making molds. I need to see if I can think of something that I can make that would be a two-part mold. I'm going to sculpt them. I thought about, like, I'm not really a seamstress, so I'm just going to have to sculpt on top and see how it turns out. But I think I'll be able to capture the texture and the smoothness of fabric, I think. He's going to have a shirt underneath and then that big cloak, like, kind of jacket on top of it. So I'll probably work out the bugs on the shirt underneath, and then hopefully have it so that the outer layer looks really good once it's done. All right, got a little bit of Magic Sculpt ready to go for the last 14 minutes of this Power Sculpt. I'm going to take a smaller than that, small ball of this, and roll it into a coil so that I can rework his bottom lip. Okay, the reason I want to rework his bottom lip is because I put the teeth on, and right now they look like they're coming out of nowhere. I want them to look like they're coming up from underneath of his lip, so I've got to add this on, which might mean I end up increasing the size of the snout. I don't know at this point, but for now, he definitely needs this. Alright, so now that he's got that, I gotta smooth it all down into place. The tricky part is I've got almost all of this sculpture now has somewhere on it that is soft and pliable from all the sculpting we've done today. Ooh. I do like the extra shape of that bottom lip. Oh, it's adding a whole lot of character to it. Let me see if I can get him in a good angle for you. Nope, that's a bad angle. Twist. Something about it is starting to really, I can hear him talking almost. Just, he needs a little more water. I'm just getting the bottom bit of the Magic Sculpt that's on there and just blending it in to what's already dry underneath the lip. Yep, I could totally, yep, ferrets and babies are not a good combo. All right. And blend that in just a little bit more. Gotta gonna blend this side in just a little bit. Okay, I like the bottom lip of that now. Hey, Axis Stress, thank you, hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for the follow. If I did not pronounce it properly, please let me know. I need to adjust his camera just a little bit so that you can, something about his face now, the bottom lip, it's I think it added a lot of personality to him. But I'm gonna have to add some more on top of the beak type piece, just so that I can get some textures in there now that we sculpted some other pieces on top of that. So I think I'm gonna do that now. I think I'm ready to see how that comes together just a little bit. Just gonna add, took a little ball off. I'm gonna roll it into a bit of a coil. I'm gonna put it here and then just kind of pull it down and forward. And I'm gonna end up smoothing it in. And then from there, we'll start putting some texture lines into it. I'm gonna go ahead and get it nice and watered down to make it super blendable. And keep pushing this down in. And as long as I get the majority of this area covered, I'll get to get some good texture lines thrown in. As long as my thumbs don't slip, I won't smash my teeth that I've sculpted in here. Hopefully I'll just get a little bit of extra going on. And I can always come back and add a little more to this, because this definitely is going to have one, maybe two more sculpting sessions to it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put some lines in, and this was the whole purpose for me adding this magic sculpt on top of the beak already, was to just kind of add these lines in, because I wanted that texture thrown into it. Yeah. All right. Gives him makes him a little more bird-like. You wonder what this thing's body looks like? As do I. So at some point I'll end up doing a full drawing of it, or possibly, like, sometimes I'll do watercolors as well as some of my creatures where I only do the heads of them. But I'll have to do that because all of my creatures at some point have to have their full story to them. But I see these guys as being like 3.5 feet tall-ish, bipedal creatures, since they do wear clothes and have like a society to them. They're aristocrats and all that sort of thing. The noble parties, noble, and yeah. So there's some of that to it. I want to go to the ears. I don't think I'm ready though. No, be patient. All right, I'm just telling myself to be patient. I'm going to go ahead and start putting some more down under here to try and down in the chest area to see about the start laying some additional magic sculpt in, since there's only a few minutes left of this stream. Go ahead and start building this out and start to block out some of the basic shapes of the clothing. A lot of times I don't think of the full body of these creatures until it's after the fact. That's kind of how, like, my Reaper creatures end up having, like, they have a head up here and a head on their chest. It's how they kind of almost look kangaroo-ish in their full bodies. But I did end up making like a small watercolor study of that one, just so I could have a better understanding of what their whole physiology would be like. And I'm just putting some of this magic sculpt down on here to just make sure I cover the whole styrofoam piece and get it ready for the rest of the outfit. I think I'm going to go ahead and plug this hole up, because that's not going to... Normally when this animal, I think this was a gray fox, was the styrofoam base that I used. A lot of times I'll have like the dangling part of their front legs, the fur of that for taxidermists, at least that's what I've seen in pictures. So I'm just going to cover that up, so we're doing just the full chest area. And I'm probably going to have to look at this before the next sculpting session and draw out the clothes a little bit more, because seeing it from the side perspective is not quite the same as looking at it like I'm looking at it now, front on. one day I need to start figuring out how to sew and make clothes and things like that so that it can have an even closer sense of realism to it. Even closer sense. You know what I mean. An even deeper sense of realism, perhaps. And just going to keep smoothing this down. Just going to get this as a good foundation. I'm not going to put any more details into this guy today, but this will definitely set us up for the next time I sculpt on him. Hopefully it won't be too long. Ideally, this will be one of the guys that I take with me to the holiday festival, so I've got a couple weeks to get him the sculpting finished, along with mixing in all the other small things that I need to do, and then paint him as well. Thank you very much. Alright, just a little bit more of this magic sculpt. Where shall I place it? I think I need to just leave that alone for now. Put a little bit over here where there's a space where I can see some of the styrofoam coming through. But next time we'll sculpt on this guy, it'll be ears, and the rest of the back of the head and the clothing. And then he should be pretty much done at that point. Actually, you know what? I think I want to do a little bit up under here. Just a little bit. A little bit up under here. And what I'm trying to do here is there are some flat areas where I think when I go to paint it, it'll just look a little too flat. So I'm adding a little bit of shape to it, and then as well with the shape, I'm going to add a little bit of that texture that we put in throughout the rest of the piece with that texture map, just to have it pull up from the neck up into the bottom of the jaw, just so it kind of blends into one another. It doesn't feel like completely separate. So that's this rubber texture map. I'm just going to put a little dab. A little dab will do me. I've got just a niblet of magic sculpt left. I'll go ahead and put a little bit down up on the top of his head, just to work it in and not waste any. Oh, and I'm grabbing onto stuff that's still slightly soft. Bad Brian. And gonna go ahead and just work this one in. Spray down. So again, my next streaming session will be Saturday from 9:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then my regular schedule is that day and Monday the same time, and Wednesdays from 1 to 3 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time. For everybody that has tuned in today and been subscribed, or I mean not subscribed, followed, I thank you very much. For everybody that's lurking, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Noble, thanks for the chat. I hope everyone has a very successful rest of their Wednesday, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much for joining me on my quest. Talk to y'all later.